And now I'm going to show you how I can remotely start my car using the app on my smartphone. So I just tap on Start Engine, tap on the engine start, and then, just like magic, my car's engine will now be started. That was absolutely amazing, right? I mean, I just started my car using my phone. Now we can stop it. Okay, so installing a remote start to your car definitely has some really cool advantages, but it also has a lot of disadvantages as well. And it's very important to understand what those are before deciding whether or not you should install remote start to your car. And in this video, I'll be showing them to you, while at the same time installing and setting up remote start on my own car. Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. If you're new here, hello and welcome to my channel, and I hope you like today's video. If you like smart home and automotive technology content, then hit that subscribe button, because most of the time, that is what you're going to see on this channel. Today's video is all about how to set up and use the remote start feature of a car alarm. Now, of course, all car alarms are different, so the installation process is going to vary slightly for the brand of car alarm that you have installed or that you are planning to purchase and have installed on your car. But it won't be that much different, so irrespective of the brand of car alarm you have, this video will still be very helpful to you in understanding how the remote start actually works. This video is also part 2 to my last video, which was the installation video for the car alarm that I will be using in today's video. And if you have seen that video, you will know it's this Watts key alarm. Several of my followers now have requested for me to make a remote start video, as it seems quite a few of you are really interested in how remote start works. So this video is for you and everyone else who is also interested in the remote start feature of a car alarm. Okay, so for this video, I'm going to pretend that you already have a car alarm installed on your car, like me, and that your car alarm supports the remote start feature, but this feature has not yet been set up. First of all, I don't recommend using a cheap brand car alarm either. I strongly advise getting a high quality alarm installed. Yes, the alarm I'm using in this video is one of the cheaper brands, but I don't recommend it. Okay, now depending on the type of car you have, there's a very high chance it's fitted with a factory installed transponder based immobiliser system, just like my Volkswagen, which is a 2014 model. And this is because a lot of cars from 1995 onwards were, and so the first problem that you're going to be faced with when installing remote start will be, how do you bypass the immobiliser? Because this will need to be done for your remote start to work. And to do this, we need to use an immobiliser bypass module. There's lots of different brands of immobiliser bypass modules available these days, and most of them are very affordable to purchase as well. And this is one of them, which only cost me $18, and it's from Cardot, which is a well-known car security product brand in China. So yes, the first step in setting up your remote start is to use a bypass module, just like this one, to get around the problem with our immobiliser. So to be able to use this immobiliser bypass module from Cardot, you're going to need one very important thing, and that is a spare key for your car. If you don't have a spare key for your car, then some of you might have a really disappointed look on your face right now. But don't worry, there is another way around this problem, and in a few minutes I'll tell you all about it. But for now, I will explain to you how this bypass module works. So for the next few minutes, let's just pretend that you all have a spare key for your car. I'm actually really lucky because I do have a spare key for my car. And here it is. Well, here's what's left of it anyway. This used to be my spare key, but because I'm always pulling things apart and hacking around with them, this is now what's left over from it. But the good news is, it's the important part, and it's the part that we need for this video. However, for some parts of this demonstration, I'm going to use my existing key to show you things instead, as the chances of any of you having a spare key that looks anything like that are probably quite slim. Okay, so inside your key there is an electronic component called a transponder chip. Sometimes this is built into the circuit board, like mine is, or as I'm just noticing was, before I hacked my key apart, and sometimes it's a completely separate component altogether. Here are some examples of what a transponder chip inside your key might look like. Now, using my Volkswagen to demonstrate, I'm going to give you a really simple example of how a transponder-based immobiliser system works, because it's really important to know this. There is an antenna permanently mounted around the ignition switch of your car, and this is called the immobiliser transponder antenna. Now, when you insert your key into the ignition and turn the ignition on, the immobiliser control unit of your car reads the data from the transponder of your car key by using that immobiliser transponder antenna, and then it sends that information to the engine control unit of your car, basically in the form of a hexadecimal code. The engine control unit in your car, which may look something like this, basically already knows what that code is that the immobiliser control unit is sending to it. So once received, it then compares that code with the code it has stored. And if those codes match, the engine control unit will now allow the car to be started. However, if those codes do not match, the engine control unit will not allow the car to be started. And that is basically how the immobiliser system of your car works, but it actually gets a lot more technical than that, and I could make an entire video on that subject alone and probably still not cover it all. Okay, now let's come back to this immobiliser bypass module from Cardot. Just take it out of the box. And here it is. Now, first of all, you will need to permanently mount your spare key under this part of the circuit board. And this long grey coloured cable part is actually also an antenna, which is used for reading the data from your key. And yes, I said permanently, so if you have a close relationship with your spare key, then I'm afraid that relationship is now over, because your key will now be living inside this box for the rest of its life, and you will never be seeing each other ever again. Which is why, for this installation, you need a spare key, as I said before. Now, the way this bypass module works is there are two brown wires here, coming out of the main plug of the interface, which act as another antenna. And what you need to do is wrap these wires around your existing immobiliser antenna coil in your car. Something like this. Now we still have two more wires left over, a power and a ground, which we need to connect to the car's electrical system. Now, once the bypass module is powered up, this little relay here will trigger, allowing this antenna to work, which can now be used to read the data from your spare key here. And then using our other antenna, which is our two brown wires, it then sends the code from your key along the antenna back to the car's original transponder antenna. And now the code is ready to be sent to the engine control unit. And it will be sent as soon as the car alarm system turns on the ignition for you, which it will do when you activate the remote start feature of the alarm using your remote fob or the app on your phone. So, do you understand how it works now? No? Okay, let me explain it another way. This immobiliser bypass module is now basically your car key. And because the engine control unit needs to read the immobiliser code from your car key to be able to start the car, thanks to this bypass module and the code, and how the code is transmitted along the antenna back to the car's factory-mounted immobiliser transponder antenna, the immobiliser code is now available anytime it's needed. But now your key never needs to be anywhere near the ignition ever again. Yeah, that's pretty clever, right? And I bet you didn't know it was that simple to do as well. Now, of course, there are even simpler ways you could do this. And if you're in the business of installing car alarms, you will know those ways. And you will also know that those ways, while very simple, also pose a huge security risk to your car. And for that reason, I will not be going into those other ways in this video. But hang on, isn't using this bypass module also a huge security risk to your car? Yes, it most certainly is. And I will be discussing that later on in the video. Okay, now let's get back to the problem of if you still want to use this immobiliser bypass module, but you don't have a spare key for your car. Which, as I noticed before, due to the way I have hacked my spare key, this is now also a problem for me as well. But it's now also an incredibly convenient problem for this video. Just out of curiosity though, put your hand up now if you do not have a spare key for your car. Yes, just as I thought. That's most of you. No, I'm just kidding. I can't see any of your hands, of course. But if I had to guess, I'm guessing I would probably be right in thinking that the majority of your hands are up, right? And that's because most people don't have a spare key for their car. But as I said earlier on, there is a way around this problem, and that way is kind of simple. However, it will cost you a little bit. And the solution is to simply take your existing car key to a locksmith and ask them to clone the transponder code from your key to a clonable type of transponder chip, such as, for example, this one right here. For years now, locksmiths have been cloning car keys, and when I say that, I mean to make a spare key for your car, they just copy the data from your existing car key to a transponder chip. And there's nothing wrong with that, and it's also a perfect solution to being able to use this immobiliser bypass module when you don't have a spare key. So yes, all you single key car lovers just need to take your existing car key to any locksmith and ask them to copy the data from your key to a clonable transponder chip, just like this one. You don't need the whole key, you just need the transponder chip itself. So it will be cheaper to buy this way as well. Then, once you have this transponder chip with your car key data cloned to it, you can simply just glue it to the circuit board of the bypass module, just under the antenna here, and the bypass module is then ready to use. I will just let you know though that in some cases your locksmith will also require your car as well to be able to clone your key, so make sure you have your key and your car available, as they will probably need both. Okay, so that's how this immobiliser bypass module works from Cardot, and that's how you can use it even when you don't have a spare key. Now I'm going to set this bypass module up properly for myself, and then I can finish off the installation. Okay guys, I'm now sitting here feeling angry and disappointed, and that is because of this car alarm. Okay, so I have been having problems with it from day one, as some of you will already know, and now those problems have got worse, where it's now got to the point where this car alarm is too unsafe to continue with any further. And yes, I said unsafe, and that is because I was just sitting in my office on my lunch break, and guess what happened? The car alarm, for absolutely no reason at all, just started up the car all by itself. Now don't worry, nobody was hurt at all, and that was because the car was not in gear. As you can see, my car is a manual, not an automatic. But if it was in gear, that could have turned into a very serious problem, which is very concerning. And what's even worse is this is now the second time this has happened with this car alarm. Fortunately, the first time the car again was also not in gear, so no one was hurt. So because of the high safety risk, I am not going to continue any further with this car alarm. Now don't worry, you have come here to watch a video about remote start, and that's what you're going to see. I can still use this alarm to finish this video off for you, and I'm going to. However, I will not be covering the wiring side of this car alarm any further. Okay, now let's go back to our Cardot immobiliser bypass module. Just get the camera up under the dashboard. As you can see here, the immobiliser bypass module has been mounted. It's all nice and tidy and out of the way. Okay, now once we've got the bypass module installed and wired up, it's incredibly important that we test it first, because if the transponder chip inside the immobiliser bypass module is not detected, the remote start is not going to work. And the good thing about it is most cars, just like mine, will tell you when there is a problem. So for example, it says key not in range. This is telling me that the transponder chip inside my immobiliser bypass module has not been detected, so the car is not going to start. One common reason for this problem will be due to the antenna that we have wrapped around the car's factory immobiliser antenna. Now remember, that was our two brown wires that was coming out of the immobiliser bypass module. You need to wrap them around the ignition switch probably, well, I've got it wrapped around 5 times, and that works fine for me, and I've had no problems whatsoever. The other problem you've got is if it's too far back, like behind the ignition switch, it will not work, because the aerial reads from the front, because obviously that's where you put the key into the ignition. So yeah, if it's too far back, it's not going to detect the transponder chip. However, once everything is set up correctly, we just turn the ignition on. As you can see, here's my ignition key here. I'm not going to use it. Put it up there. There's absolutely nothing in my ignition switch at all. I'm just going to use the push start button. So we push that to turn the ignition on. And as you can see, there are no more errors. So this means that the transponder chip inside the immobiliser bypass module has been detected correctly. Okay, so what's the next job to do? Well, that would be the wiring. The fun part. No, that was just a joke. The wiring side of the job is definitely not what you would call fun. In fact, some people prefer to call it a nightmare. And at times, it definitely can be. Now, as I said before, I'm not going to continue any further with that Wattski car alarm. From now on, it will be used purely for testing only. So I've come back to my table where I'm now going to briefly discuss all this wiring with you. Now, all car alarms are different of course, but the wiring and the way they function are all very similar. But just before I continue, please be advised that installing a car alarm with remote start can be a very complex job, which requires a lot of knowledge and years of experience to complete, and I don't recommend trying it if you do not know how to install car alarms, because if done incorrectly, you can not only cause serious damage to your car's electrical system, but because of the remote start feature, you could also cause serious, if not fatal, damage to somebody. For example, if the car decides to start up and drive into someone. However, because this video is about remote start, it makes sense to cover just the basics of the wiring in this video, and that's just for the remote start only, by the way. So, for the remote start function of a car alarm to work, it requires some very important components of our car to be connected to the alarm system first, not only for it to function correctly, but for it to also be safe to use. And those components are the handbrake, the brake pedal, the doors, and the tachometer, oil pump and injector signals are all used to inform the car's alarm system that the car is running, as it needs to know this for the remote start system to operate correctly. And as for the ignition, there are a few stages which the alarm system needs to monitor, which are ignition off, accessory ignition on before start, full ignition on, and crank. And if you don't know how that works, then you definitely do not want to install a remote start system by yourself, and I would suggest getting a professional installer to do it for you. One of the main reasons the handbrake is connected is for safety. How this works is, if the handbrake is not on, the car will not start using the remote start. The brake pedal is also used for safety, and it requires to be pressed when starting the car by the push start button. One of the reasons the doors are connected is so if the car has been started using the remote start feature and one of the doors is then opened, the car's engine will shut off. Okay, I've basically completed the wiring side of things, well, at least for the remote start to work anyway. I will not be continuing with this alarm installation any further, so there is no need to proceed with any further wiring of it. So now that I have covered the basics of the wiring, now I'm going to put my car back together. As you can see, it's in a million pieces. And then it's time for the fun part of the video, that we, including myself, have all been waiting for, testing out the remote start feature of the car alarm. Okay guys, and the car is finally back together. With all the problems I have had, I never thought I would hear myself say that, but anyway, the installation is now finally complete. And this is how the remote start feature for this car alarm works. And remember, we don't need the key anymore thanks to our car.immobiliser bypass module, so we can now remove the key from the ignition permanently. Okay, so the first way we can use the remote start feature of this car alarm is by using the remote fob. And to do this, the alarm requires the handbrake to be on and all the doors to be closed. And then, to remotely start the car using the remote fob, all you need to do is press and release the lock button at the top here one time, and then press and hold the lock button down again for 3 seconds. And the car's engine will now start. Now, if you want to stop the engine using the car alarm's remote fob, there appears to be absolutely no way of doing it using the remote fob. And so the only way to stop the car's engine from running will be to unlock the car using the remote fob, open the door, and press and hold down the push start button for 3 seconds until the car's engine stops. Okay, now let's use the app to remotely start the car. This way works really well and is definitely my preferred choice. To do this, again the alarm requires all the doors to be closed and the handbrake to be on. Now using the app, we just tap on the start engine button one time. We then get a warning message pop up. So we then just need to tap on engine start, and the car's engine will now start. Okay, now if we look at the app again, you will notice how the start engine button has now changed into a stop engine button. So yes, as you have probably guessed, to turn off the engine, we just tap on the stop engine button one time. Again, we will get a warning message which we need to acknowledge by tapping on yes, and the car's engine will stop. Okay, now that we have seen how the car can be started remotely using either the remote fob or the app, some of you may have noticed how once the car has started, the actual starter motor of the car continues to run for a little bit. This time I've come up closer to the car so I can once again demonstrate what I'm talking about. Did you hear that? Why does it do that, and is it bad? You see, the correct way this should work is usually the alarm is designed to detect either a tacho signal or an injector signal. Once either of those signals are detected, the alarm then knows the car has started and will stop cranking the starter motor. However, due to this alarm that is being used in this video and it not having any of those safety features built in, it works on a timer function instead, where the alarm will crank the car for a number of seconds and then it will stop cranking. And to answer the question of, is this bad? Yes, it's very bad, because if you continue to use it, it will eventually destroy your starter motor. And again, this is another reason why you do not use cheap car alarms. But for me as a YouTuber, it's been good that I could demonstrate this, because it's allowed me to point out this problem to all my viewers watching this video. If you have a car alarm system already set up on your car, and it's over cranking like you have just seen, I recommend you remove it immediately if you care about the health of your starter motor. And now I'm just going to quickly come back to the push start button switch. While this has absolutely nothing to do with the remote start at all, I'm still going to show you how it works anyway, as it's still a really cool gadget to have set up in your car. And to do this, we need to make sure that the handbrake is on, which it is, that our foot is on the brake pedal, which it is, and then with one push, this will turn on the accessory ignition, which will give us our radio in the background there. Then with a second push, this will turn on our full ignition, and then with a third push, the car's engine is started. That's pretty cool, right? I mean, I used to have to use a key and turn it in the ignition to get the car to start, and now all I do is just push a button. I love technology, but then I guess that's pretty obvious. And anyway, to stop the car, all you do is just press the button again one time, and the engine stops. And so that's it. That's how you bypass the immobiliser and set up the remote start feature to work with your car alarm. But there's still some important things we need to discuss about setting up remote start on your car. And we'll start with the security of your car. Okay, so just how secure is my car now? Unfortunately, it's all bad news. Because we no longer use a transponder key to start the car, due to us installing the immobiliser bypass module that we had to install to get the remote start to work, my car's immobiliser system is no longer secure at all. What this means is that if a car thief broke into my car and tried to hotwire the car, it would be so incredibly easy to steal. Of course there is a car alarm as well installed, but if you're a clever car thief, and a lot of them are, this is not a huge problem to them. However, of course, I personally knew about how this was going to affect the security of my car, and so I have built in extra security features to prevent this from happening. Yes, of course there are ways to make the system more secure, and if you love your car as much as I do, you will need to do them. However, unfortunately for the security of my car, I will not be discussing that on YouTube. But I would highly recommend consulting a professional installer for more advice on this first, as it's an issue that should be taken very seriously. Okay, now what about the steering lock? If your steering lock is not electric, just like mine is not, then without turning the key in the ignition, how can you unlock the steering wheel? Yes, you're right. But first of all, you're forgetting about one thing. This system we have installed is called remote start. It's not called remote drive. Generally people want remote start installed on their cars for reasons such as to start the car, to let the engine warm up before driving away, or in the winter they can use it to start the car, which will turn on the interior cabin heating so that the car is nice and warm inside when they return to it. So if you're not going to be driving the car when you remote start it, then you don't need the steering to be unlocked at all. However, if you do want to use the remote start system and also be able to drive away, and your steering lock is not electric, then the only solution is to disassemble the steering and physically remove the lock itself. Now, while this may seem extreme on some cars, this can actually be an easy job to do. However, once again, it's incredibly important to remember this will now result in an even bigger security risk to your car than before, and for that reason, I would not recommend it. Okay guys, and that now brings us to the end of another video. But first, let's just do a quick summary of what we have learned from this video. We know that for everyone's safety, We definitely do not use cheap car alarms. We now have a strong understanding of how car immobiliser systems work and how we can bypass the immobiliser system so that our remote start can work. And we know, although it won't be straightforward to set up for all cars, we still can use CarDot's immobiliser bypass module for a remote start installation job, as it can work. We know that having a car with an electric steering lock can be a big advantage for remote start. And 4, we now know that installing remote start will impact the security of our car due to bypassing the immobiliser system, which would make it easier to steal. So it's definitely not something you would want to tell your car insurance company about, that's for sure. Okay, now I'm actually really curious. If before watching this video you knew nothing about remote start at all, how many of you, now knowing the advantages and disadvantages of installing remote start to your car, still want remote start for their car? Let me know in the comment section below. There are definitely a lot of ups, but probably more downs to aftermarket remote start than people know about. I have tried to make this video as informative as possible on this subject, so I hope I succeeded at doing this all for you. I will also add that there are many new products coming out all the time with upgraded security features, and that this video and its opinions are only to do with the products featured and used in this video. I cannot speak for other products that I have not tested before. And I will also add that the security issues mentioned in this video don't apply to cars that come with remote start installed by the car manufacturer. Those remote start systems are incorporated into the design of the car's immobiliser system, and so therefore are a lot more secure than installing an aftermarket remote start system, which is what you have seen being installed in this video today. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. If you have any more questions, then let me know in the comment section below, and as always, if you enjoyed this video or found it helpful in any way, please like, share and subscribe to the channel where you can watch even more videos, which I upload every week. So I hope to see you all in the next video.